Welcome to Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and her panel of guests bring you leading-edge astrology conversations through a journey of soul growth patterns connecting astrology's energetic cycles. Get ready to understand your path in the cosmic roots of the stars.
Hello, this is Talk Cosmos, leading edge astrological conversations, and I'm Sue Rose Minahan, the founding host and evolutionary postmodern astrologer that has 3 panels, and tonight we have the Moonbeam Team, and we're talking about the upcoming new moon in Virgo, this coming on the 6th, and then in Virgo, yes, which is a big shift because for the last 6 months, it's been the full moon in the archetypal period. Archetypal period is when the sun, in this sense, is in a sign. And so whether the planets all have their orbits, as we know, and the personal planets, especially the ones interior from us between Earth and the sun, Mercury and Venus, closely align themselves with the sun's sign, especially Mercury. It's only 28 degrees at any one time away from the sun, but it can go forwards, backwards. So with that said, archetypal period from my standpoint is the sun as it is its reigning power that benevolently shields, or well, it doesn't always shield, does it? It can be a little hot sometimes. So the point is that energy. So we have a new moon of seed growth. In fact, that's been our overlying theme, is sprouting those seeds. And then we'll have the full moon in its opposite, which is in Pisces, in the middle of the month. And it's that axis. It's really important in astrology to combine the 2 opposing houses or 2 energies, however you want to look at it. So in this case, it is Virgo, the priestess in mythology, the grain harvest, Demetra, Ceres, so many ways of being gifted to nourish us. And then again, is there nourishing? You know, there is that withdrawal, there is that rebirthing cycle later on. And then it's opposing of Pisces, which is that encompassing part of the energies beyond our control of nature. Well, it's an axis, and we're like a coin in between with the 2 sides. And now we are ready for the Moonbeam Team.
Relating to the sun and moon's energies, including the planets and the entire cosmos for the month's systematic 2-week intervals of the new moon and full moon, plus the annual 4 to 5 eclipses, this is your Moonbeam Team.
I'm Sue Rose Minahan, host of Talk Cosmos, an evolutionary astrologer and consultant, plus a certified color energy coach. I explore creative expression as an artist, a musician, and write abundantly, stories to poetry. I love investigating mythology's language, philosophizing eternity, and I'm a perpetual student of life, seeing oneness of body, spirit of people, animals, and nature.
I'm Elizabeth Liz Machette, certified astrologer, sacred healing counselor, tarotist, and numerologist, providing individual consultations, teaching and tutoring internationally, co-author of Gateways to Change, Keys to Navigating the Seas of Life, currently facilitating workshops in Camino Island, Washington.
I'm Catherine Metcalf, professional astrologer, intuitive, and tarot card reader. I am very blessed to live my passion by offering individual consultations and teaching classes at a local college and online. I love to talk and write about the planetary dances and how we fit into it. I have been lucky enough to be featured on NBC, Cosmopolitan Magazine, and Huffington Post. My goal is to educate, enlighten, and empower you.
And I'm Sarah Stromley, a craniosacral therapist and founder of Brain Body Therapy in Kirkland, Washington. I'm an evolutionary astrologer that incorporates different forms of horary, location mapping, and medical astrology into my practice. I enjoy uncovering flower and mineral frequencies that also support the mind-body coherence that aid in the healing journey.
And as Albert Einstein said,
Energy is never destroyed. Energy only changes.
Well, hi. And unfortunately for our audience, too, Sarah's having technological problems. And hopefully she'll be rejoining us as soon as she can manage, because she was there and then gone. And really, as often in the past, we've said, what's the individual take on this whole process? And the response was chaos. And I must say, I definitely think that this uncertainty of change and chaotic, what's apparent with all the changes, is certainly a byproduct that we're experiencing. Just like, as I say, Sarah coming in and going out. Hopefully she'll flash in. So get prepared. Any rate, yeah. Meanwhile, hello, Liz, and hello, Catherine. Yes,
Hello.
good to see you.
Hi. Yeah, and just keep breathing and make adjustments and go with the flow as much as you can.
Yeah, oh, it's so true. Well, here we are. It's the new moon. Time to set those intentions, as we know. And of course, Virgo is energies about cleansing and fixing. It takes all that energy of Pisces and wants to try to adjust it, try to mend it, because otherwise the leaves fall and you could make compost, as we know, and healing. So, Liz and Catherine, what shall we start off with talking about? I guess looking at this new moon, as I answer myself, is it's opposing Neptune.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is. This new moon has a lot going on. It's very active. Sometimes new moons aren't quite as active, but this one is really active. So dream big, work on the details, and you can analyze it later. It's just like try to keep track and make space for what you want to bring in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's, go ahead. Did you want to?
Well, no, I just wanted to ask if you saw the new moon. I put it on the screen. Okay, good. Go ahead, Catherine. I'm ready.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say with Neptune in the 12th house too, Neptune is the planet of spirituality and compassion and kindness. And I feel like it's in a really happy place in the 12th house. It's its natural house, and in Pisces, its natural home. So I feel like humanitarian stuff is kind of in focus now. And I mean, especially and I know this is for September 6th, the new moon for that, but I think that we're feeling it now too. And so with the humanitarian efforts that are going on in Afghanistan, and also, there's a water drought, so going on with Arizona. Like, I lived in Arizona 25 years, and they just said that they're telling farmers not to farm there now, which is just crazy. They're letting the golf courses stay open.
It really isn't that. I must say, Catherine, that is quite a statement of our of perhaps not integrity. What am I trying to say? It's not cohesive, right? I mean, if in an ideal world, which of course Pisces and Neptune is trying to have us see the wholeness of things, we would, because Mars is opposing it down there in the 6th, we would be noticing that that doesn't make any sense. What are we doing?
Well, I know Arizona is Arizona's, a lot of the money that they make is from tourism, but it's like, oh my gosh, what's more important, food or golf? I don't get it.
Absolutely. And really, that is also, you would think that, I was just noticing that this new moon in Virgo that we are feeling, I agree. I think we're anticipating how are we going to really change our lives to improve our health and to do some of these repairs. because that Uranus in Taurus is trining it. It's flowing, that energy, supporting, trying to get to our authentic changes of values. Wouldn't you? It seems, if we can listen and hear it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that opposition of the moon in Virgo opposing Neptune in Pluto, or Neptune in Pisces, you know, if we can use the humanitarian spiritual beliefs that we have and the desire to help other people, and we bring in, and instead of just dreaming about it, if we can bring in the resources and the detail orientation of Virgo, we could accomplish some amazing things, I think.
That's good points. Yeah, bringing in the resources and in other words, making it realistic, taking that idealism to realism. You know, yeah. Liz, I heard you kind of say, what were you going to add?
Well, it's like I remember a green community making the houses around that they would treat the water and then use that water to put on the golf course. So then the golf course wouldn't need fresh water because they recycle their own water. And if more golf courses could do that, then there'd be more water for the farmer. But as a whole, people could conserve. And yes, farmers could cut back and the golf course. So if everybody helped out instead of just saying, let's farmers quit watering your crops, that would be much better.
It does get to being an issue of, I'm thinking, finances and allocating technologies and methods, right? And that does take some willingness to because there's always going to be a disruption when that is, I'm thinking to build that kind of technology. But the advantages, as always, I don't know at what point we're really going to recognize the necessity. Because another thing is that with this particular chart, Mercury, just like no, it's not. Never mind. Yeah.
Well,
anyway,
5 of the planets are retrograde of the 8th, and we have a couple of asteroids and Chiron also going retrograde. So we have all this retrograde energy. I always look at that lots of times as an internal process or things going on behind the scenes. And that'll start shifting big in October because we have several planets going to go direct in October. So start doing your work now because October is going to get busy.
Yeah.
That's very profound and needs to be considered, not to get overwhelmed with, as Neptune is, I think, opposing this, and we're wondering how can we fix these things that are in that, because it's in its own natural house. And this chart, of course, is for the East Coast, which represents the United States because our capital is there. I mean, we could, depending on where it was, it would be in a different house, but that's why it is in the 12th.
Well, and at this new moon time, analyze your desires and what you've been doing, because it's a good time to, make our desires known, but reevaluate. Do I want to live where I'm living? Do I want to downsize, upsize, move closer to friends and family? Move somewhere where I've always desired to, because there's a lot of people moving right now.
Once again, this is very true. I have a neighbor. We both moved last year, and now she and her daughter's family are moving back up to the Northwest in a different city, into Portland. But it's just indicative of how, in a sense, of reviewing and recalibrating. I always use that word recalibrate, but it seems to be quite effective in my thinking of improving what was maybe one good step, but needs further work. Yeah, 5 planets, all these planets that are retrograding, rethinking, restructuring, redesigning how we are wanting to transform, expanding, envisioning. I'm thinking of the code words for these planets, and which happens every year, right? We know that. but it's like a harvesting time, isn't it? In a sense, like harvesting to reharvest what we've.
Yeah. And I feel like with, all this Virgo energy, Virgo to me is always, in the 5th and 6th house are highlighted here. And I feel like Virgo is always focused on health. So I think, with the new moon coming up on September 6th, there's like myself personally, I've been just completely exhausted lately. And I know I've talked to other people lately who have just been feeling the same way. So I'm really hopeful that with the new moon in September 6th in Virgo, that it'll be a burst of energy, or at least a commitment to, it's maybe a reminder to commit to our physical selves, and take good care of ourselves, make sure that we're eating healthy food and exercising and all that good stuff. So
it's very profound. For those that are like the believers, it's an easy message. For those of us that wish that idealistically that was right, it's great to be on the team, but then when you walk away from the stand, like the game, it's like, well, what was that all about? It's so true. It's very, I've been hearing this idea of caring, self-care. I know in my own family, there's a inherited heart situation that both my sisters now are telling me about. And it's like, oh, holy criminy. Yeah, something to recognize.
That you need to recognize and review. Yeah. And Mars, is conjunct it. So is conjunct the sun and the moon. So that's physical energy. So, I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful with this, that it's going to be the kick in the butt that I need, that it will, push us forward into really, like you said, reviewing, acknowledging, reviewing, and refocusing on what can we do to take better care of our physical self.
Yeah. Now I know if Sarah were here, she brings up the asteroids, which we all do, but I'm just thinking, because Hygeia is an asteroid. It's that what looks like the medical, but they're between all of it, so close in Virgo. And so, yes, this is distinctly about what feeds our health, and in opposition of awareness with the strategies or lack of strategies, or using that new strategy of maybe getting perceptions through our spiritual signs and information.
And as Catherine brought up, it's the new moon in the 5th house. So focus on our children also as they're getting ready to go back to school, and some schools have started. So it's been in the news a lot of more children getting COVID, and how do they do this? So they're trying, but it's like a big focus.
It's huge.
It's huge. And I mean, there's like over 20,000 kids in Florida, that got it. I think it was that. And then there's also, I just read something today about, they did a track of a school in California where the teacher actually had not gotten the vaccine yet. And she got COVID, and she ended up giving it to 20 of her students or something, to a bunch of her students. And then her students got it, and they shared it with their family and their friends. So yeah, it's just, this variant is just so contagious, So yeah, and a lot of the states are starting to implement, requirements for teachers to have the vaccine.
Well, when you look at this chart, you can see the energies that are trying to work in that area, because we have Pluto, which is a very slow moving planet at 24 degrees Capricorn still, that's also retrograde as one of the large 5 ones. And so it is in that area for the United States, at least on the East Coast, working to implement rules and regulation with the idea of hopefully protect, for empowering health, it's always quite controversial, is it not? Particularly with Saturn in still Aquarius, that isn't sure of how this disruption is really going to get best structured and stuff like that. We were thinking too that there is a air trine, which has been ongoing now because it is with the slow, well, it keeps shifting a little bit of the three planets, but right now it's with Mercury, the big thinker, in Libra of partnerships. Like, okay, how are we going to cooperate with all this? And along with Saturn, which is very slow moving, which has been one of the trine where the energy is going back and forth, trying to restructure. And the third one would be, well, the North Node and Ceres trying to nourish in our direction. I think you wanted to bring up some points on that.
Well, it's a lot about communication, but with the air grand trine, today a big hurricane is bearing down on Louisiana, and I believe it touched down there. I think it's 150 mile an hour. I heard early this morning. So this wind, but then there's a way to communicate because I did start to evacuate a couple of days ago. So that's a great thing that they have better communication on the 16-year anniversary
of Katrina. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Scary.
Let's talk about the Sabian symbols because we have a few minutes before we leave, and hopefully at the break, Sarah will come back. We'll find out. But I know that there's three. There's one that's kind of rounded off from the new moon, which would be 14 Virgo. And then we'll bring up what we call, no, it'd be 15 Virgo, pardon me. And then the one before is the karma symbol, which would be 14, the one it's in, kind of where it's maybe proceeding from. And then we have the quest. Where is this energy going to? So this could be a long conversation, but I think, Catherine, if you could start off with the Sabian itself at 15 Virgo.
Yeah, and I was looking for my notes here. Okay, so it says a fine lace ornamental handkerchief. So it's has to do with matters of the heart, has to do with feminine energy, and acknowledging something sacred. So it's like there's this old story about, a man having to go off to war and a woman putting, her perfume or her scent on a hanky and giving it to the man so that it can be used to comfort, him in challenging times.
And
so
I was,
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to read, Dane Rudhar is adding something to the idea of this too, that it is it's symbolic, as you were kind of mentioning, from a brotherhood, which kind of envelops that idea too, that welcomes a person about a battlefield, but more that when they've proven themselves on the battlefield, that where they meet their past that tries to block their way. So that's really interesting. So in other words, it's like we're trying to, in all these retrogrades, try to connect to that past in such a way to open it up, to use it to go forward, so it's blocking. So what it says is that this ornamental handkerchief is a mystic beloved, that she's woven out of spiritual threads. Did you want to go on with what the karma was, Liz, of 14? I think it's a family tree. Okay.
Yeah, the karmic Sabian symbol degree, and the karmic and the quest degrees was where I learned about it was from Linda Hill, and she's in Australia. So the 14 degrees Virgo ties in with the new moon symbol of a family tree, looking back, seeing where we've come from. If you have no sense of belonging, you might have a sense of belonging, but if you had no sense of belonging, then you can look to other people of like mind.
Yeah, and what I might mention on this, again, Dane Rudhar, was that it's going to the roots to get to become, your flower. But so the root power is essential, which is so interesting because it does feed into this other idea of the handkerchief to serve you as you go forward, like, whether it was on the battlefield with the scent or however. Yeah.
It could have been a family tradition.
Yeah. So we have just a moment here to add, I guess our timing is such, the quest. Let's do that, and then we'll take our little break. Yeah.
Okay, the quest degree of where we're headed to, 16 degrees Virgo. Children are brought face to face with an orangutan, a direct experience with the power of nature and instinctual nature. So to me, that said, like getting in touch with instincts.
Yeah, our authentic soul. That's what I was thinking too. The whole of mankind. Well, this is promising. So we will come back with Liz Machette and Catherine Metcalf, and hopefully Sarah Stromley with the Moonbeam Team is August 29th. And we love you so much for listening. And we'll go on with the full moon. See you soon.
While we take a break from this week's edition of Talk Cosmos, let's take a look at this cycle's archetype. We are currently in the yin period of Virgo. By leaving a cycle based on the creative manifested legacy of our highest creative form, the energy of Virgo completes the last sign below the horizon of the self and requires discernment to perfect oneself through the mental process of critical analysis. As a mutable earth sign duly ruled by Mercury, Virgo refines, heals, or fixes through daily routines, developing skills and services to control nature's chaos and maximize efficiency.
Talk Cosmos brings you leading-edge astrological conversations with hour-long programs each week on KKNW. The show goes live every Sunday from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific. Talk Cosmos weekly programs are also available to watch live on Facebook and YouTube, along with daily chats throughout the week on the Talk Cosmos YouTube channel. While you're there, make sure you click like and subscribe buttons so you can get the full Talk Cosmos experience. Or, if you'd rather listen to the show archives with audio only, the entire podcast collection since 2018 is available on most podcast carriers. So, grab your coffee, tea, or kombucha and enjoy the show.
Hi, this is John Foster, astrologer and software developer, and you're listening to Talk Cosmos on Alternative Talk 1150 AM, where we understand how to implement our free will through the cosmos.
Find out the latest about your favorite shows on Alternative Talk 1150. Check out 1150kknw.com.
Hi, and there's Sarah. All four of us. Yay, team. Well, we are sprouting those seeds. That's right. As I was explaining earlier, we're in this new system for 6 months where we have the full new moon, which is on the 6th coming up. And then we'll be working with the full moon, which we'll talk about now. And that'll be at the end of Pisces, 28 degrees and 14 minutes on September 20th, which is right before the equinox, isn't it? So, Sarah, since we missed you, do you have any great thoughts that you want to bring up? Because in that particular, or hello, how have you been? This is great.
Yeah, I've been a little bit frantic. Can you hear me okay? Because I'm using an older mic that we decided I shouldn't use because my other one stopped working, and I've been playing between two different microphones to get this going.
So fascinating. This ties in beautifully to bring you up to date. When we started this off, because we usually come up with an idea from each of us, like, what does the whole energy look like? And our idea was it's pretty chaotic. So we just decided not to do that. And then in the conversation, we were really bringing up the fact that there's these retrograde planets right now, 5 of them. So we're all looking back to try to regroup. And in fact, the last Sabian symbol, the quest one, was trying to look at the whole of humanity and kind of get past the blocks. So here you are using an old microphone, trying, but getting past the block. So perfect. This is perfect. Okay, so we are with this new moon. No, we're not in a new moon, Sue. I see a reboot. We're doing the full moon in Pisces. And at the end of it, that's what's so fascinating. And you know what? Maybe we'll just start off with the Sabian symbols again, because that'll give us a little conversation. And then we can go into the factors. I know that's a little bit disorienting, but Uranus is part of this whole spectrum, so that's not unusual. Yeah.
Well, the Sabian symbol for it, you want me to say?
Sure.
So so the full moon is at 28 degrees Pisces. So we pop up 1 degree for the Sabian symbol for now. So it's light breaking into many colors as it passes through a prism. So it says you may need to break your situation down into its simpler components in order to see the full picture. So it's vital to the success of the situation and will lead to a greater understanding of the relationship between its many parts.
And Dane Rudhart, because I've been looking this up too, same Sabian symbol, but on that says the fact that unity is always going to break into multiplicity, which is so fascinating, isn't it? You know, we have a rainbow every day lately here in Hawaii. It's in the same spot. Sometimes it's just a partial. Yesterday it was a full rainbow. My camera couldn't take the whole picture, and in fact even had a double one, but there you see the light in all its different colors. But it says that here too, he adds, there's no absolute unity. The only absolute is the relationship between the one and the many. So it's really Pisces is that factor, the other side of Virgo. And Liz, did you want to bring up the karma and the quest? Now the karma is the prior and the quest is after. Yeah.
Yeah, so at 28 Pisces, a fertile garden under the moon reveals a variety of full-grown vegetables. Time to harvest the garden, having what you need for nourishment. And then the quest degree is 29 Pisces, a rock formation resembling a face is idolized by a boy who takes it as his ideal of greatness. As he grows up, he begins to look like it. Manifestation of one's ideals.
You do succinctly say things. Yeah, because that was essentially what Dane Rudhart was saying. He was saying too that with the fertile garden under the full moon, that it's the moon's power to call forth the instinctive power of growth, that many things respond in different ways. So it fills the equal variety of human needs and tastes. So that would be nourishment, you know, and that's really, when you think of this prism idea of the unity of the many colors, we each have a favorite sometimes. And I guess that's how we like to see it. And that great stone face, that rock formation, it is the ability to mold the life of the visualizer. So the seed power is sort of the latent power of seeds, because with new moons, you know, isn't that when we plant our seeds? So now with the full moon, we're trying to weed them out. Well,
right. And using the prisms of light, we can analyze what's in our life and release that which we don't need today, but maybe in the future we might need it, but today we don't need it. So we could share it with others or give it away or put it away for a while.
Yep. Sarah, do you have some burning thoughts?
Well, I mean, just looking at this full moon, I mean, it's so emotional in a way. It's disorienting. There's some deep conflict over how to deal with money, how to deal with relationships. And I think a lot of those things are going to be up for us, as far as also the concerns that we may have had for our own self-care that has been tied into the other new moon that we were looking at. So
do you want to pull the chart up, Sue?
Okay, I will do that. You got it. Keep going though while I do this.
And we still have an air grand trine, but Mars has taken Mercury's spot in Libra, and Saturn in Aquarius and North Node in Gemini. So I always think of Mars as the gas pedal and Saturn as the brakes. So there could be some chaos, or could be
we could get whiplash.
Well,
well, it does go along with that idea that feeding in from what Sarah said about all these areas. They're potent areas. Yeah, go, stop. How do you? Yep.
Right. Maybe you think you're making progress and then all of a sudden you aren't, or it's shifting and changing, but there is communication happening. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And Venus is actually in the 7th house in Scorpio. Venus is a planet of beauty and love, has to do a lot with relationships, and it's opposing Uranus, which is the rebel. So, and brings about unexpected changes and disruption or great awakenings, right?
I think it was an earlier talk where somebody was saying that through great emotional breakups, there's breakthroughs. And I was reviewing that thinking, oh gosh, it's so easy to see something in theory, but then to practice it is like, oh dear.
Yeah.
Wait for the breakthrough.
Yep.
Something that's been really pulling on my attention since late last night, and that I've been following, is the Hurricane Ida that's hitting New Orleans again. And I had to look at the chart for New Orleans. And yeah, they're going through some big stuff right now. They're with the New Orleans chart, they're having Saturn square Saturn, and it ties into that whole Saturn square Uranus, how the structures and everything that's going on. And Uranus is conjunct their Neptune. Neptune rules the oceans.
Oh, wow.
And so, I mean, there's so much. I could talk an hour about this one, but I will keep it succinct. That we're going to be. Yeah, there's just, to me, a lot of the dialogue around this ties so much into how we're reaching these points of realization of the old model is unsustainable, and and really coming to terms with that. We have a love affair with this really eccentric city, this old. And it's a port city, so I know we're going to rebuild it. But how we rebuild it really needs to be called into question, because this ties into all the themes of global warming. We're having the oceans are rising, the ocean temperatures are increasing, which is causing the frequency and the intensity of more of these massive storms hitting coastlines. And on top of that, this city, New Orleans, is built on the seabed. It sinks on average 1 to 2 inches a year. And so it's dropped probably 2 feet from the last time we rebuilt the levees 15 years ago. So, I mean, I know they're very innovative. They're absolutely brilliant with how they've done these things. I mean, no one in the world could have done this. I mean, I don't know if any of you were at UAC in New Orleans in 2012. Were you? We were I remember going to the top floor of the Marriott on Canal Street. It faces the waterfront, and it was scary. You could literally see the ocean bending towards the city. It's crazy. It's nightmare worthy. But yeah, I really think they need to consider moving the borders of the city. They need to really consider repurposing some of the land for better uses and rebuilding the wetlands that have been wiped out by that are going to help create a stronger barrier against future storms.
Those are very good calls, and that really follows up with the full moon in the conversation. No, new moon. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting which is first and second here, so forgive me. But with the new moon that we were talking about earlier, that in Arizona, the fact that the farmers, Catherine had brought up that the farmers were asked, don't farm, we don't have the water, But because of the tourism, we can still have the Gulf watered, the fields, I mean, the grass, watered. But these words, I love it. Repurposing. That's exactly what's, in my estimation, that this planet of Uranus that's in the very middle at 15 degrees Taurus, which is a power point of a fixed sign, is demanding from us as it's retrograde. There's a little sound there, somebody, if you could like pause. There's a little shuffle. Thanks. Okay. But so repurposing is so important, and moving the borders. Oh, I love that, of anything. That's Saturn in Uranus. It seems like, will we get the message? Yeah.
Well, and they're anxiously awaiting to see of the improvements that they did make, how that works. Because they made improvements to the dikes and different things around New Orleans. So,
okay. But I'm thinking generally overall is like, yeah, but that's, yeah.
And with this, we have the moon conjunct Neptune and Mars conjunct the sun, even though Mars is out of sign, but they're still very close to each other. So that's a really interesting opposition. So I would say that there's some anxiety going on around the full moon. And so breathe and be gentle with yourself.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. And we had talked about this the other day, too, that we actually should try and take the time to find the humor.
Oh,
and all the craziness that we've been experiencing. So, you wrote on your notes here that chaos happens. We can't change it. We can try to stay out of the drama and find the humor in it. So I think that's good advice for this full moon.
It is interesting. It's really, there's a class I'm taking too with Dr. Tad, who's of the Planet Buzz, and it's our personal myths. And interestingly, one of them, it breaks up in incremental way patterns. And one of them in our relationships, this happens to be the week of focus and humor, being the comedian or being the audience within a relationship, was saying it's so helpful as long as one still addresses the issues if they're very serious, but it does lighten the severity of it. And it shifts, I think, the whole perspective, doesn't it? It's like just kind of allows it to maybe give an opportunity to see it in a different way to find a resolution eventually.
And these moons are the halfway point between the eclipses, so that makes them more powerful too. They call it power points. So
yes, now repeat that again, please, Liz.
The new moon and the full moon are the moons between the eclipses, the midpoint, or we're halfway through. And so these are powerful, strong moons. And because it's a power point. So it's like pay attention around that time.
So give the degrees, just land it a little bit more. I'm with you, but it's abstract at the moment. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, like for this one in September, let me get my notes where I have that written down.
Well, September 20th is going to be
for September 20th, right? And the lunar eclipse was on May 26th of 2021, and the next one's November 19th. So this is the one halfway in between. But both these lunations are halfway between the solar and the lunar eclipse of the one previous and the one coming.
The eclipses. Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry. I see what, okay.
And how would you interpret that?
Well, they're usually more powerful. That stuff is going on. So it's like if something came in at the eclipse, it could be repeated this time, or it could just be a powerful point in the world or for us individually.
An activation.
Yes.
I see. So now it gives the strength of what's happening, dynamics, I guess that's the way I put it. Yeah. Well, then that is potent. Yes. And in a sense, right now, thinking of it in those terms, looking at this chart again, that's still up for those that can see, because we have people with podcasts that can't, but we have the moon, and the sun are opposite from each other in the sky. I mean, Earth is between, right? And so Mars, though, is close with our actions of our ego sense of how we can fix things in that house of the sixth, whereas our emotions with the moon, which essentially it represents, and our home and past and all these elements, our attachments, are, because it's the moon really that we're looking at, is with Neptune. And it's like the best part of it would be to dream, because we could be easily overwhelmed. So from that standpoint, maybe singing and dancing and finding a good movie that we could laugh about a little bit, to just try to not take the drama out. Because I think we started this off with Sarah saying that, which I think has validity, that there's a lot of serious issues that are being confronted in our life of how to shift. I mean, they're all retrograde. It's a natural time that we're doing that introspection.
And we have a tight T-square here with Mercury in Libra, Pluto and Capricorn, and Eris and Aries, and it's quite tight. So there's still a lot of adjustments happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with Eris, okay, and I'm going to have you repeat that a little bit more, dear Liz, because you come up with really good things, and I'm one of these people that goes, okay, now further, please expand. Yeah.
Well, Mercury's there in the 7th house at 27 or 23 degrees of Libra, and Pluto's in the 10th house at 24 Cap, and Eris is at 24 Aries. And Pluto and Aries, this is the 4th square between Pluto's and Eris, and we have one more in October. So it's like they're kind of adjusting. To me, it feels like some issues around women on one level, but issues for humanity in totality. And with Mercury there, it's like people are trying to come up with solutions. I would say that there's communication, but there hasn't been a solution yet.
Boy, this is pivotal. Thank you for bringing that to point, because this square between our transformational planet Pluto, that's actually the slower planet in this orbit, because Eris, E-R-I-S, the goddess of discord and truth-telling, chaos, you might say, because truth-telling can provide some chaos and discord, is 558 years. It's longer orbit. And so they are in that tension square. And the last time this happened between, I think was back BC, when great thoughts of consciousness were evolving with Confucius and Sao Lu. I can't. My tongue and my brain don't always connect. Forgive me, please. But huge consciousness of how to, in a sense, you could say of religions, regardless of how you think of religion, because the actual definition says it has to have a deity, but it is that whole framework of how you think of the cosmology, right? And so there's these huge new organizations. So you could perceive that maybe all these changes that are going through, because this is 4 of 5, as you say, heavy. Well, they're heavy because they're intense. It's squares. And I think the next one is in not that late from now, September, October. The 5th October. Okay. So essentially out of this, and there's a long aftermath, because Eris, when she did throw the golden apple, it didn't happen immediately. There ensued this 10-year Trojan War to figure out the aftermath of fairness. Well, anyway, we won't go into that.
Yeah, there's something about themes of inclusion, exclusion, and the debate that's happening involving that.
Yes.
And I agree about the issues of fairness. that's definitely going to go.
And
Maybe
this
we-
moon goes void, of course. It makes the full moon, and then it goes void, of course, immediately.
Which in a sense is like it's done its deed, and then in that thinking, and so therefore we kind of sit with it and let everybody else. It is it's like a thumb. Wouldn't it be like almost like you put your hand in a piece of cement and it kind of sits there for a while? Nothing else is going to change it.
This happens on a Monday. And I was thinking, when we're looking at these charts, it's in Washington, D.C., and there's just something really wonky and weird going on where people are just behaving abnormally, or if they're not on drugs, they're acting like they're on drugs, kind of thing. But I think the highest and best use of this day, I would think, would be volunteer work. Just finding a way to do a group activity and connecting with a higher purpose. And, nothing brings you out of your pain more than recognizing and acknowledging other people are hurting more than you.
Well, there's another byproduct of that idea, along with our humor, not to forget that, to bring up maybe within the co-partners as we're working. But the idea of manifestation, I've learned that the idea, you feel of the manifestation that you want. It's not just a thinking environment, but a feeling, embracing as though it's real. But then choose a little tiny step that fulfills that feeling along with your other goals. So doing a volunteer work could be that tiny step of feeling like one did have some empowerment over their environment, over their life, and reconnecting. Of course, how to do that with COVID is a little bit tricky too. So a lot of these have to but there's so many ways. In some ways, one could, speaking of children, of course, now at this point, the children, because there we were seeing the fifth house and the schools and all that, and it'll still be an issue. I have in my family sisters, and one of them, her entire life was dedicated to the education of children. And at the end of COVID here, she took for her particular school, would read stories and also enact little short videos on a teaching element. And I think they're rather brilliant. And so there's all kinds of ways to connect, which may not be our first choice, but there are ways, to choose how to help, and do that volunteer work, which especially sixth house. Wow. And Virgo. Excellent. I would say.
Or pick up the phone and call somebody.
Yeah. It's a day of compassion. So
yeah,
that's nice. We need lots more of those.
Oh, hey, just before we go, next week, our very own Elizabeth Mouchette is going to be our guest, and she's going to be interviewed as an author of a book that she actually co-authored, but she's representing, that is a gateway to change. So do tune in. It'll be a very exciting event, and we thank everybody for listening to Talk Cosmos, Leading Edge Conversations. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Until next time.
Oh, goody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and her panel of guests connect soul growth patterns with the energetic cycles of astrology. Be sure to tune in next Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific Time to continue your journey through the roots of the cosmic pathway.